Welcome to Metropolitan Faces, the podcast about subway photography. I'm Blake Eskin, and today I'm speaking with Anton Nimblett. And Anton, welcome. Nice to meet you after seeing you, I guess, once or twice in your pictures, but seeing you, your work. I guess I want to start asking you, you're also a writer, and maybe you're mainly a writer, or I don't know how you talk about yourself, but...
It's true, I'm a writer, and I don't think mainly a writer, and how we talk about ourselves, I think how I think about myself is so many different facets, right? Not to make it into a pompous thing, but it's just that we're, as humans, all these many different things. And so, yes, I'm a writer, and I work hard at that as well. I have 2 collections of short fiction published. I'm working on a novel. I've done some poetry here and there. And that connects. It's not separate or apart from the photography that I do. Uh-huh. So, yeah, they're just different parts of me. And neither of those is something that I do to make a living. So there's that other part of me as well.
And do you mind if I ask what you do to make a living?
Sure. I've been doing social service work for the past 15 years. I run a family shelter in Bushwick, Brooklyn. So, again, very different, but all still part of me.
So I want to go back to something you wrote back in 2009, which was about, I think it was about being a writer and writing short stories. But I'm wondering here how it applies here too.
Okay.
And this was like, you wrote this thing, I'll start with one word, permission. As a good West Indian boy, I learned early, and perhaps too well, to ask for permission before interrupting a big people conversation, before having a piece of coconut fudge, permission to ask permission sometimes. And so I kind of want to understand this a little better. What is it? What is a good West Indian boy? And this was about permission to be creative, as you were talking about it, as I understood it.
Yes,
so
yeah.
Can you unpack that a little for us?
Sure, very much true. I'm glad you found that old quote. It's, there are oftentimes things that we do in the present or things we look back on and we think, oh, well, yeah, that doesn't quite hit the mark, or that's not quite what I intended to say. That quote is so completely true. It's a part of my life. So definitely growing up in Trinidad, there was this thing about it being a good boy. That was a really important part of the culture, and certainly in my family and my household. So that involved sort of like being a good boy meant not doing things that were outside the box, not coloring outside the line kind of thing is maybe what we would say now. And so in thinking how that impacted me as I came into adulthood and lived my life, maybe I sort of took that a little too seriously and didn't get away from it fast enough. So in terms of the writing, it certainly was about giving myself permission to do something that was creative, where that was not a traditional path. It was not something that was expected. And in terms of the photography that I do, by the time I started taking pictures the way I do, I'd gotten past that sort of like feeling the need to ask for permission. And so, if anything, taking the photos is sort of a reminder that I don't need permission. When I first started and I would post things, a lot of friends would say, oh gosh, boy, how you could take pictures of people on the train? They don't know, like, you're going to get in trouble. My mother was like, oh my gosh, are you going to be safe? Are you going to take a photo of somebody and they're going to be upset? And so we'd have those kind of conversations, but when I was having those conversations with them, I'd already gotten past the point where I was worried about permission. And so I would have conversations with them that there's certain rules that I give myself in terms of what photos I take or would post, but there's also just, and maybe it's a legal thing, I think, the expectation of privacy. So if we're in public, we have a different expectation of privacy than if we're in our home. So I try to be respectful, of course, but yeah, the permission in that sense, I've gotten past that, and it's kind of nice to have that freedom. So maybe it's an expression of that freedom of having gotten past.
And so the writing starts around 2000 or the late 90s, or when did you start writing? And then the pictures start, a lot of the conversations I've been having recently kind of start around Instagram or around the iPhone, but like I don't know what you were doing before or what, so.
So yeah, the writing started around 2000. The first piece I had published was in a journal out of NYU, and that was, I think, 2001, perhaps.
And that's Calabash? Is that the
Yeah,
journal?
yeah. So Blake, I can see that you're like very serious about your research. That's really, I appreciate that. That's nice. Calabash, yes. So, and then the photography started in maybe 17. And so the things that you see on Instagram, that really was the beginning of when I started kind of letting myself take photos. So it was permission to take photos, going back to that permission thing. I guess I gave myself permission to take the photos as someone who hadn't been a photographer, who hadn't been trained and didn't have a camera and all of those other things that make it official and okay. And I was just taking it because I wanted to and enjoying it and sharing it. And so, where the taking of the pictures or maybe the sharing of the pictures started then, certainly the engagement with photography goes way back before that, right?
Yeah, so take us back, yeah.
Yeah, so my father always had a camera when I was a kid growing up. So my parents immigrated to the States. My dad came up in 69, my mom came in 70, and I remained in Trinidad living with relatives for another 7 years. But I would come up for summer holidays to spend time with them. And my dad and my mom would take me everywhere in New York, and my dad was great. We would go to museums and the Botanic Gardens and the zoo, and the camera was always strung around his neck. And we have still corrals and corrals of slides from the 70s still that he took. So there's always that kind of awareness of what photography was and looking at his things and being in the photo as subject. And it's a real thrill. I lost my dad 3 years ago, and it's a real thrill to go back and look at those photos and photos that he took, that I'm in, photos that other people are in, and there are occasional ones with him in it too. So that's kind of like the early connection to photography. I remember taking a class in college, and I don't even remember what it was called, but it was sort of like looking at different creative things. And so there was a section on poetry, and we were looking at Eliot's Wasteland, which I never got into. And then there's a section my poet friends might, chastise me for that. I was young. That's a disclaimer, right? But there was a section on photography, and we just had this wonderful text that had these beautiful black and white pictures. And going back to the beginning of photography, there were some French photographers and a lot of American photographers that we all know, black and whites. And I was fascinated by it. I was just like, I can still picture some of the shots and things with light and color, and with color and shadow, and beautiful, right? But at that point, photography, there was a high bar to get into being a photographer. I was a college kid. My parents were working really hard to send me to the school. I didn't feel that I couldn't, just say, oh, well, I want to be a photographer. Now I'm going to try this thing and work in a dark room. And so technology being what it is, now we come to this point all these years ahead. And yes, I can walk around New York City with my camera, which is my phone, and take shots.
Do you remember the first picture you took on the subway? Is it up here?
I don't know if it's the first picture I took, but I remember the first one I posted, I think, from the subway.
So yeah, tell us about it. Yeah.
And so that's a shot of a young man and a young woman, and I was on my way from Brooklyn to Manhattan, and they were sitting directly across from me. And it was a summer day, or it was a warm day, and they were both dressed casually. And it was a biracial couple who, interestingly enough, had on different versions of black and white on them. And I was just, as a person in New York, as a person who likes people, just fascinated by them. And I'm like, oh, I want to capture this. And so I just tried to get the shot with my phone, and I did. Didn't disturb them. They didn't, and that was the first photo.
It's a stunning picture. I'm gonna pull it up. Yeah, it's a stunning picture. The guy is Asian. He's looking at his phone. White shirt, black pants, and she's kind of resting on him. They look really. And you you caption it color in harmony, and
Yeah, so the caption is a little bit of me playing writer and poet there, in terms of trying to get to the different levels of what I was seeing. So yes, so certainly there's a color of the black and white that they're wearing, but then there's the the biracial aspect of their coupledom, and just the harmony and the beauty of the way their bodies fit into each other. And that's a moment, right? But I'd been looking at them for a little while, so there was just this very comfortable and lovely harmony in between them. So yeah, that's the caption.
And how long do you? You must have seen things before that you wanted to do like this, and this is the time you did it. Or I know I have walked through the city for decades, like I'm like, oh, if I had my Leica with me and I was somebody else, this would be a great picture. You know what I mean? And so like, how did this like? How much time elapses between when you notice this and when you take this picture? Did you take a bunch of them, or did you take only one? Did you just like how inconspicuous? I was going to use the word sneaky or whatever. Like how inconspicuous were you trying to be when you did it?
I like inconspicuous better than sneaky. Yeah, I think I generally try to be inconspicuous because I don't want people to feel intruded on. Different from being sneaky, where I'm trying to do something that I think they might not approve of. So in terms of the time to take this picture, I think I hadn't gone for a long time. After I took that class that I referred to, I remember walking around for months and weeks saying, looking at, and again, I was at school in Pittsburgh, so it wasn't about the subway at that point, but just looking at things and saying, oh, that would be a great photo. And I, again, for the reasons I said in terms of the bar to get there, I just kind of let it go. And then I think one of the things I do is when I see things that catch me like that, it will often end up in the poetry or the fiction. And so for a long time, that's what I was doing. Rather than trying to capture the image in a photo, I was trying to capture the image in something I was writing.
So it becomes like an image, it becomes the beginning of a story, it becomes, or maybe like in poetry, it doesn't, and actually in some fiction too, it doesn't have to be that specific, but like it's sort of like you see something and then that starts turning into something in your mind and then you're trying to represent it?
Yes. I mean, it's not always a straight line there. So it's sort of, it might influence something I'm already working on, or it might be the core of something that becomes a full story. I think one thing about the photo, and when I look at this again, I think for me as somebody looking at photos, right? Again, when I started writing because I love to read. So as a reader, I know what makes sense to me. And so as someone just looking at this photo, what I like about it myself, humbly, is that I can tell my own story. So if I hadn't been the person sitting there taking this photo, I can tell, and it might not be the actual story, but I can tell the story. And I think that's kind of one of the things that we do as New Yorkers, right? New York is a great people watching place, and the subways are like the best of that. And when we're there and we're observing, we fill in blanks. So we look at a couple, we look at an older person, we look at a younger kid, and we fill in blanks about things. And that's, to me, a large part of creating a story.
I want to go back to Trinidad because there's no subway in Trinidad, right?
No, not yet.
And it's probably I just want to know, you talked about New York being this great people watching place. And I guess you, from a young age, are kind of back and forth a lot.
Yes.
So what's Trinidad? Is it a people-watching place? Is it like a very big, small village where everybody you're looking at are people you know? Like, what is the, what's different about how you move in public space? And
yeah, it's certainly different in a lot of ways from New York, although New York being as cosmopolitan as we are and as Caribbean as we are right now, you're going to get a lot of overlap. But growing up, I had the experience of being certainly in a smaller place where I did know everyone around. But I grew up in the second largest city, San Fernando. And there, so if I was on the street where I lived or in the school that I went to, it was the case that everybody knew everybody. But just going downtown and walking down High Street, there are going to be a lot of people that you don't know. And it's large enough and cosmopolitan enough that there's people watching. Even going back to visit, from the first time I went back to visit as a young adult, I love going to the market because the market is people watching. And of course, we're famous for Carnival, and we have festivals around Carnival. We have festivals not around Carnival, like Diwali, and it's very much about there's rich people watching. Yeah, for sure.
So let's go back to New York. And you mentioned earlier the rules that you have. That's part of what I'm interested in is like, what are your rules? Like, how does maybe it's not game isn't the right word, but like, how does the activity of photographing on the subway work for you? What are some of the rules? Do you ride the subway to take pictures? Can you only take a picture if you're on, like, how do you construct it for yourself?
So, yeah, I mean, I think there's so many photos that I didn't start out saying I want to take photos on the subway. That happened organically because as a New Yorker, at least my New York experiences, I take the subway a lot. So I was traveling from my home in, at the time, Fort Greene, to my job in Bushwick, Brooklyn, and a vast majority of the photos here are on that line. They're on the A&C line between Bed-Stuy and downtown Brooklyn. So that's not a rule that I have to take the pictures on the photo. Some of the photos, there's one that's a favorite of mine because it's connected to a lot of things that are important to me, but it's also a photo that I like, which is taken right outside the L train, the last stop in Canarsie. And it was a Sunday afternoon, and I was with a friend of mine, a dear friend of mine, and there was this woman coming from church who was just a vision. And she was waiting, I think, on a bus after having gotten out of the train. And he kind of nudged me. He was like, look at that. He's like, look at that. And so he said, look at that. And I took the picture. And in terms of taking the picture, again, it was, the intention was not so that she would see me do it. I didn't want her to see me do it, but I wanted to capture it. And so there's that. That's one of the kind of things I try to do. Other guidelines, I don't want to take a picture of someone that's making fun of them in any way. I don't want to take pictures that, and everybody has their own thing, right? That's just me. I don't want to take pictures that sort of, that I feel are kind of like exploiting someone's pain. There's a lot of pain in the subway as well. There's a lot of pain in the world. There's a lot of pain in New York. Part of why I do this is about appreciating and where my focus is in life and reminding me to look in certain ways at the world, at a day, at a moment, because naturally I could go to dark places, but it's an active exercise in taking me back to joy. So that's one of the guidelines too in terms of what I take.
Yeah, I noticed a lot of pictures on the Franklin Avenue shuttle platform, which is just, and it's for listeners who have not ridden the Franklin Avenue shuttle, it's this weird little train. It's 2 cars, and it runs every 10 minutes like clockwork.
Like clockwork.
But that means you do a lot of predictable waiting there. Yeah.
Yes. I love that ride, and I can see how we have very similar ways of being in the world, and I like that. I like this. So this is my new commute. This is my current commute for the past 3 years. That I take the Q to the shuttle and then to the C. But I just think the shuttle ride is magical. After it leaves Prospect Park, it goes through a very short tunnel, and after the tunnel, there's this moment where the light starts filtering, and it's different in the different seasons. And in the fall, there's all this color, and in the winter, there's snow, and right now it's so green, and you just come from this urban. It's a delightful mix of urban and green, which we don't think of, So there's a graffiti, and then there's beautiful trees. So that kind of being in that space makes you want to take a photo, makes you see things again, see things differently. So,
Yeah, and a lot of, I mean, my commute has been like mostly the 2-3, and so the train doesn't go outside.
right.
And that was one of the things I noticed about your pictures. I'm going to pull another one up. Hold on.
Okay.
I shouldn't say hold on, but I'm going to pull another one up, and this is from Chauncey Street, which is actually a stop I don't know. I don't know what train this is. J, I'm guessing,
You're
because it's a train I don't
absolutely right.
ride very much.
You're absolutely right.
Talk us, I noticed a lot of your pictures are like, whether you're waiting on the platform at Franklin, which is up in the air, or whether there's a lot outside happening in your pictures of the subway. But just tell us about this picture. The color and the moment. Yeah.
So this photo is, you're right, it's Chauncey on the J line, the J and Z line, and this it literally goes right past my office. So at work, I often have to stop conversations mid-sentence because the train is going by. It's a real New York experience. So this was a lunchtime. There's snow on the ground. It's one of those ugly New York snow days, right? So they're beautiful New York snow days when it's fresh, and then there are the ugly ones where everything is nasty outside.
But this picture does not feel nasty. Yeah.
Thanks. And there's some photos I think that we take that we're really conscious of what we're going for, and then there's some that we take looking at one thing and then see there's other things there. So I'm looking at this now, and I know what I was going for here was something about the geometry. I was trying to frame the stairs and that subway green, and then the subway lamps as it was against the red roof. So I was going for that, and was caught by the red flowing hair of the woman walking down the stairs, and how it and I was just I was trying to catch her at a point where it kind of balanced nicely. So I catch that, and I posted it and took it, even though she's blurry, and of course I wasn't trying to capture her blurry. I would have loved to have it, more focused there, but I liked it anyway. And now I'm looking at it, and like you're saying, there's all this color there, and so like looking back on how I was probably feeling that day, I'm coming out from being at work. This was lunchtime, I remember. And maybe it was a hard day, which is, not an unusual thing. And again, refocusing from the hard day and the ugly snow, I focus on the color and the lines and the
there's
movement.
maybe a 1/12 of the frame at the bottom, maybe not even that much. That's like, and it really took this conversation for me to notice the dirty snow. I noticed the slightly cleaner snow on front of the stairs. But yeah, I mean, it feels really alive. And there's also this person moving in the background too. And so like, how many exposures do you do to get something like this? Or you just try to wait for the moment, or?
It differs. I mean, most times I'll just kind of like do the fast shoot so that I get a bunch of different frames and then can go back and look at the different ones and choose. And I'm pretty sure that's what I did here. So just hold the button down and just let it do its automatic capture of a few different frames.
Okay.
So yeah, I definitely did that here and then went back and looked at it. And I probably, straightened it up a little bit in editing in terms of making the lines, the vertical lines really vertical, something like that. But
and how are you doing your editing? Like, what apps are you just like doing it in the
just
camera
on the
app?
iPhone, yep.
Okay.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Nothing fancy.
No.
Nothing fancy.
And you're not a filter person much.
Not much. There are one or two things that I've played around with a filter with, but I like to do. It's as much fun for me editing as it is trying to get the shot. So I like to do that myself. Yeah, I like that control.
I want to talk about this picture. And I shoot from the hip. So I'm not so I take there are pictures I've taken and the person's looking at the camera, but they're not necessarily looking at me. The ones where I've looks like I've gotten caught are actually like looking up. But I want to talk about this picture. This one's called Red-Handed. Did you get, I mean, the word that comes before red-handed, of course, is caught. And so did you get caught this time, or?
So I think I got caught, right? And I think we shoot the same way. I shoot from the hip. It sounds really cool. We shoot from the hip. We're like old cowboys. And it's sometimes you get a sense that, you look at the shot afterwards and you see the eyes came and you're not quite sure. So this one, I was pretty sure that she certainly saw me. She was aware that I was sitting directly across from her. She certainly saw me with the phone. And I was aware in the moment that she was looking at me and thinking, I think this guy's taking a picture of me. But, this is cool New York, She was like, yeah, I know I look good. And yeah, he can take my picture. He doesn't look like he's going to do anything, creepy with it. And then, so again, the captioning. Captioning is fun for me as well, right? I think for you? Yeah. So she's wearing like all these and part of the reason I wanted to take the photo was the kind of the way that she's got these funky red boots on, and the way and then it picks up a red that is in a pair of shorts she has under her jeans peeking through, and it's just on again this it's not a neutral color background, but it's almost neutral to us New Yorkers. There's nothing else going on there, and the red just really pops. So
and she's got a Big Mac bag too, and that's
more
also red.
More red.
And that's she's holding it in her hand. It's red-handed, and but there is something about the you talk about, there are two colors I think about all the time. One is this kind of, it's almost like the internet uses a blue like this to kind of disappear. It's like it's like Google Link blue, or like a denim blue. And then there's the orange of those other, and there was one picture I noticed. It's the woman wearing the Gremlins shirt. And it took me a while. This one, there's this picture, and actually this is not an orange, but like orange is the other color of the subway.
Yes, and again, so it depends on the line you take, right? So the Q line has a lot of orange, and that is kind of an easy kind of vibrance that you can get in a photo. And a couple ones there, really great examples where the people in them are there's nothing in terms of color that's noticeable about them. The things that captured me about there are two men in the shot, both on their phones separately, but so close physically, and in the activity, it feels like it's a shared activity, even though they're on separate phones. But so they're noticeable to me, and that's what caught my attention. But what I like is the color here from the background, because it's a different train line, and the color from that train line, the orange that you're talking about, is there, two different kinds of orange. Also, I like this photo because I took it from the outside of the train, and I have a few of those, and I think you probably do too, where just the architecture of the subway car kind of does this framing that's just kind of makes you look better than you are, maybe.
Yeah. Either it's both, there's one, and you have one, it's another N train, I think, where it's like a bunch of South Asian women in headscarves, and then a black man on the right, or I'm trying to remember, but it's like a mix of people, and they're wonderfully framed by the split in the double window.
Yes.
And, and you get those effects. You get it from the windows. You get it from the ways the doors open. You get it from the ways
Absolutely.
that the train window is behind someone. The pole is often a really good structuring device too.
The pole is a two-sided coin. On one hand, it's great to give you structure, and then it just gets in the middle of a shot I want to take. Sometimes I'm like, there is great. This woman looks wonderful, or this guy looks great, but the pole is right in between. So I would either have to move, and then I become obvious, or try it and see, if it can work, and sometimes it doesn't because the pull is there. But yeah, it's definitely more balanced out by how many times it helps you.
Have you ever been caught red-handed in the kind of way that your mother was worried about?
No, that's never happened. I've never had anybody react negatively, kind of, you know, even give me a bad look, let alone a bad word. Hopefully that's something about spirit and intention and how I am in the world, because there's definitely no bad intention to what I do, and I can see there's none to what you do. Have you had a bad experience?
I haven't had a bad experience. I've definitely had, there's a couple that come to mind. One was on the shuttle, the Times Square shuttle.
Okay.
And I was taking a picture of a woman, and she seemed into it in a way that I didn't think I was. It seemed like it seemed like something like a welcome inappropriate behavior or something like that to her, and it kind of made me shook me up a little bit.
Yeah.
I had one time that I think of when there was I was standing, because standing is great when it's crowded. It's great because you get close, and and there was a young black man, and I was taking picture from the hip, like with my arm kind of belt level, and I got a look, and he's like, and it was a look of anger and chastisement, and also maybe a knowledge that this wasn't a situation he had the power to do something about it, and I had complicated feelings. I also remember a time when there was a mentally ill woman who was screaming about people taking pictures when I wasn't taking pictures.
Yeah.
And that was really interesting for me too, because I think people are tense about being watched and the way they're being watched, and whether it's the other people on the subway or the MTA or whatever. And so it was this really interesting thing where I didn't do it, yet I might have done it, and if 5 minutes later, and also it was kind of like a response to what I do, even though I wasn't doing it at that very moment.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I think even though I've not had a bad experience in doing it, I'm always aware of it on some level. I'm always kind of checking for red flags or checking for safety in some, and not actively, but it's that New Yorker thing, right? Like it's that street smart kind of thing that we in cities, whether it's New York or anywhere else in the world, we are aware of our environment and how best to navigate that. So yeah, it definitely is on my mind all the time.
Do you get a rush from the risk ever?
No.
No. Okay.
No.
Some people do. Some people don't. It's interesting.
No.
I want to go back to. Hang on a second. So I guess I want to go back to the rules, and I want to ask you, are there, you talked about, sort of this idea of wanting to do, to put good energy out, or to be respectful, not to humiliate or embarrass or shame. And so are there examples of pictures that you've taken, and now maybe they end up in your fiction or your poetry, when you take it and then you're like, I really should post this?
I think I don't take the shot if I'm feeling that way about it, and I'm clear enough ahead of time not to take the shot. The things I don't post are mostly because I didn't think they came out very well. So that's I have maybe one shot that I took that I found it comic. There was, again, on the shuttle, this woman in this amazingly fabulous outfit, and but it was somewhat comic, and I didn't post it, but I also didn't like how it came out very much. There's another shot I have that is at Times Square, and I was walking up the stairs, and it was a homeless person, and I almost never take photos of a homeless person because, again, I don't want to, kind of take advantage of people's plights, or trivialize them in some kind of way. But this man had on just these series of garments and grooming and styling about him that had as much to do with his homelessness as it had not to do with his homelessness. And if this were a person walking into Saks on Fifth Avenue, similarly styled, but with, coming with the styling coming from a different place, it would have had the same effect. He had the same effect as that. And so that photo I took of just the back of him walking up the stairs, and I'm below him, and I posted that one because for me it was not about his plight. It was about all these other things that were bigger and separate from that. And yeah, so that one was maybe close, but I posted it.
And I think you've used the word runway, like New York is a runway or New York is a fashion show. And so like, that's definitely part of what you're after.
Yeah, I like, I'm not a fashionista by any means, and definitely I'm not a fashionista in the sense of paying attention to brands or rules. But New York, one of the joys of being in a city that is a walking city, is a commuting city, is people leave their houses aware that they're going to be seen. And they present themselves in the world in that way, and I love it. I am there for it. And I love being able to say this person is a teenager and they got their clothes, wherever, in a thrift or in a fast retail, but they've put it together in this way that looks amazing and is fun, and I appreciate and I enjoy as much as somebody who put something together for thousands and thousands of dollars. Yeah, I'm there for the runway.
What patterns do you notice, like looking back at what you take pictures of? Maybe are there things that you've noticed that you were drawn to that you didn't realize until you kind of look at a bunch of them? So
one of the nice things, again, and thank you for this conversation and this opportunity, it gave me a chance to go back and look. And so I said, why was I asked to do this conversation? Let me look and see what I have here. And so one of the patterns, which doesn't surprise me, is that there are a lot of couples. There are a lot of couples in soft and tender moments, not anything salacious, not anything sexual, but intimate in that soft way. And that doesn't surprise me because that's kind of who I am. And it's also something that shows up in the fiction a lot too. And in terms of timing to start working on this, I started in 2017, and at that point there were a couple things going on. Drifting off topic a little bit, but one was that I'd started a job at a new site, and it was very tough. It was a different population, and it was a struggle. And in that year, I also broke up with the man I'd been involved with for 5 years. And so it makes complete sense to me that I was drawn to taking pictures of couples. That the two, they're not unconnected. Which is again, one of the great things about doing this is that it can be of so much purpose to me, and hopefully maybe somebody just looking at a shot. But definitely for me, it's been like really, really useful.
And do you tend to take pictures of people who are more like you, less like you? It's hard to, and you could, however you interpret that, like.
So I'm thinking about that. And there's a way in which, so even thinking about taking pictures of couples after having gone through a breakup of a long relationship, that's sort of taking pictures of something I don't have. And so, of course, I'm drawn to taking pictures of something that I find interesting or fascinating because it's different from me in that way. But I definitely, in terms of demographic, I tend to take photos mostly of people of color, not exclusively by any means, and I don't have a rule about that. I don't set out to do it, but there's a natural affinity, and I also just kind of politically think it's important to celebrate. That definitely is in my fiction as well. I write fiction about Caribbean people. I write fiction about queer people. I write fiction about New Yorkers, the people, things that are close to me. So I think a little bit of both in terms of the photography.
I was able to find some of your older stories online. None of them happened in the subway. Have you done any fiction that happens on the subway or partially happens in the subway? I couldn't get quickly enough to get your 2019 collection, which may have had something, but maybe not. I don't know.
I'm trying to scroll quickly, do a mental scroll through things, and I'd be shocked if there was nothing in the subway. I'm stumped now. I'm going to have to go back and look. There's definitely nothing that is primarily set in a subway. I'm sure there are pieces that talk about characters moving through the city and using the subway as how could I forget this? I knew I was searching because I knew there was something I was trying to find. The title story to the first collection, Sections of an Orange. In there's one scene, and it's brief, but the character is going to visit someone who's going to give him a haircut in a private home. And he takes I guess that would be, it's over in Gowanus, and that elevated subway line, the G.
The F or
the
the
F
G?
and the G, right, yes. So there's just a scene, and again, in writing it, I'm thinking of the visuals, and it's a cool line to read, again, because it's an outdoor line, and there's a scene there. So, yeah, I knew there was something.
I want to talk about social media as a way. I mean, I found you through social media. I've been following Anton on Watch, which is your subway account handle or street photography handle. I'm not sure what I would call it. Or right, but
Just my handle.
Just your handle.
Yeah. I do have another account, and that I kind of started to be separate for the writing and the
That's more like
publications.
promotional or like professional.
Yeah, right.
Right. Mhm.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. And the other one is like me looking at the world.
Perfectly
Right,
said.
okay.
Yes.
You on Watch.
Nicely
Yeah.
said.
Uh-huh.
Exactly.
But like I want to talk about like how does that feedback loop that you get through, does that a factor in your continuing to do this? What has that meant for this process?
No, that's a good question. Well, another good question. But it's something definitely I've been thinking about because I have not posted a lot recently. I've posted very little over the past year, and less certainly in the past 3 years than I was before. I mean, I was posting at least daily for years. A couple of things happened that slowed it down, and certainly one was the pandemic. And if we're taking photos of people on the subway, and we're looking at photos where there's a story and where there's tenderness and intimacy, that doesn't always show up in a certain way when there are no people on the subway because we're in a lockdown. I worked every day during the lockdown because of the work that I do. So if there's no people on the subway, there's nothing to take. And then when people returned and everyone was masked, there's so much less expression. There's so much less to see. Again, in that time, there were changes in my life. But then when I came back and started posting, there was, at the same time, as much has been said and written about the different way Instagram's algorithm has kind of been produced over the past, couple of years. And so, yeah, it is a little different to post a picture and feel that people haven't had a chance to see it. And for better or worse, I'm like everybody else, if the tree falls in the forest and no one hears it, does it make a sound? If I post a picture and no one sees it, I had the joy in taking it. I had the joy in editing it. But should I even bother posting it? So I've taken pictures I continue to do that. I won't stop, but I haven't been posting because of those things as much. But I will say that I'm newly inspired, sitting down talking to you, Blake, to maybe start posting again.
For me, during the pandemic, I was off the subway for a while because I didn't have to. I was teaching online, and I didn't have to take it for work. And then when I started getting back on it, they were so much emptier. And part of my camouflage is
The
crowd.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if you find
Yeah.
that too. It's like,
Yeah.
I feel, when there are 4 people in a car and you're sitting across from somebody or pointing your phone in their direction, then that's really different. It's also the switch to the wireless earbuds. I feel like I felt more in disguise with something plugged into my phone.
Really?
I don't know why, but
Okay,
like I
okay.
feel like protected, or
Yeah.
or I've made up a story in my head,
Sure.
or whatever it is.
Yeah. Just these little things, they make a difference, right? Yeah.
They do.
Yeah.
They do. Who else's pictures do you look at? Like subway pictures?
I should have made a list. And I'm bad with names just in general, so it's going to be hard for me to name accounts that I follow and ones that I've enjoyed, especially in terms of subway. I look at everybody. People I followed. I follow folks who are in Europe who post stuff from. There's someone who posts things #FenLife, and they're like, because it's that other thing, right? So we take the photos of our environment and of our subway commutes and of our days, and when I look at things, it's nice to be someplace else. So there's a lot of that. There was a photographer I used to follow who was wonderfully supportive of me in the beginning, and he was Clay Benskin, and he didn't do subway photography as such, but it was very New York, and it was very urban, very he shot in black and white mainly, but it so I understand the conversation about it, right? Because there's a way in which, like, looking at somebody else's work just kind of feeds you, and with Clay Benskin there was that it felt like conversation. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Have you ever, you said you do this inconspicuously. Have you ever offered someone a picture after taking their picture? Have you ever heard from someone? Have you ever been found through 3 degrees of separation?
Good gosh. Like, has that happened to you?
It has.
It happened to me once, and it blew my mind. This was probably 5 years ago, more, and I was going into the city. It was an unexpected trip. I was with my then boss and one of our coworkers, and we were in her car, and we were driving into the city to do something, and we were in Midtown, and stopped in traffic, and there was this man leaning against one of these great old, it may be the Pier Hotel or something, like one of those great old buildings just east of Central Park. And he was dressed to the nines, and I was just like, I said, look at that man, and took the picture through the window, and I posted it. And that was maybe a Thursday afternoon, and 2 days later, I got this message from this man saying, oh, my friend Roddy showed me this picture of you, a picture of me that you took, and he was super into it. He was flattered. He's a man who likes his place in the world, so he didn't take any offense of it. And so I started following him. We've been in conversation a little bit here and there, nothing major, but that was the one time it happened, and it was really cool. Because there's a way I feel like in taking the photos, we're connecting with people in the world, and so that was just another level of connection that was really fun.
And knowing that could happen, has that changed how you take pictures on the subway? Is that another minor factor in your street smarts calculation of what you can get away with, or what you can do, or what's okay or not really?
Nope. I have given myself permission not to. And also because, again, I know if I get caught, if that happens and somebody says, I saw you took this picture of me, I can be comfortable that I took a picture of you because I saw something really nice there. I saw something really nice there. And it might have been just a moment you were sharing with someone else. It might have been something cool that you were wearing, the flowers that you were holding, the way you were looking at your child. So, yeah, I can be comfortable.
There's these three, again, like I don't see many self-portraits, but there's these three pictures of your shoes. And can we talk about these three pictures? There's this one, there's one labeled, why don't you talk us through these pictures and I'll steer on the screen.
So it's funny, I have been comfortable talking about everything we were talking about up to now, and this feels odd. Even though it didn't feel odd posting the picture. So the first one we're looking at is me wearing a pair of shoes that I don't like. But the bigger point was that it was right next. So this is definitely in the subway, and this I think is at the Quartel. You stop on the queue line, and it's I know it is. It's the very first time I saw the sign that says, "Please keep a safe social distance," and it's stenciled in yellow on the subway platform concrete.
With the foot.
Two yellow footprints, kind of like, yes, reminding, and this again was in this really tough space in our lives as New Yorkers, as Americans, as people in the world, as the rest of the world was going through this. But there was also this thing about, I was commuting every day, as I said, and many people weren't. So there was also this sort of like, I'm out here and seeing things that other people aren't seeing. And so it was the first time I saw the sign. And so I put my own feet next to the footprints that were stenciled in yellow to put myself in the place and to sort of like add that other layer of it's not just a sign on concrete, but it is about people who are having an experience in this tough time. And so that's why I took this photo, and that's why I posted it too.
And so that one's labeled phase 1, and I think this one's, I'm not sure if there's one part 2, which is from, but that's earlier picture. So this is another one that I love. And just, can you describe it?
So this one does have my feet in it, and it is also related to the COVID moment. Well, let me take that back. I think it is.
It says August 2018, so I'm not sure. Yeah.
Yeah. No. So this is not related to the COVID moment. So this one I took purely for the geometry. Like, geometry is one of those things that comes up. We talked about couples and soft moments, but geometry catches my eye as well. I taught high school math for a couple of years. I'm going back to all the different parts of me.
Here in Brooklyn, or
in East Harlem. So the geometry of this just caught my eye. We have the subway floor, and this is one of those sort of like speckled, maybe terrazzo, fake terrazzo floor designs. It's dark with red and white speckles. And then there are these 3 bold yellow arrows, one pointing straight ahead, one going left and one going right. And so the geometry of that caught my eye. And I was standing there not because I placed myself to take the photo, but because that's where I was standing on the train where there was space that made sense. It was right at the doors. And these are shoes that I do like. And again, I'm not a fashionista. They're just a pair of funky little summer white shoes. But the white also made sense for me in terms of the shot. And it's really a joy for me for someone to look at this, a picture like this, which is, I think, a picture that most people would not pay any attention to. It's really a joy for me to sit here with someone who says, let's look at this picture and talk about this. That's really funky.
Well, thanks. I just think because you don't show up. By the way, I've never thought of those plastic floors as fake terrazzo, but I will forever now. But I just think there's something, and this is another one, I just think there's something about, especially when, the way you talked about looking at your dad's photographs and looking for evidence of him in them. When I looked through the pictures that were obviously on the subway, like, these, your feet were your presence, and then there's one that you took at the Eastern Parkway stop in the Mirror, with those great blue blue tiles and the old faces, the gargoyles.
Oh yeah.
Uh-huh. But let's talk about this third one. Are those what are those? Are those Clarks or what is?
They're not Clarks, but they are desert boots. Again, because my way of doing fashion is not with the money and the brand name. So, but yeah, it's desert boots are a very Caribbean thing. I mean, they certainly don't originate in the Caribbean, but Caribbean people I think connected to reggae in Jamaica back in the 60s. Reggae stars wore Clarks desert boots, and even, they didn't start it, but certainly it's a big Caribbean thing. So I was just, and I don't dress traditionally Caribbean or in any kind of typical Caribbean way most of the times, but I love a desert boot. And I think that day, I don't even remember what was in my head why I took that. And it is, as we circle back to things, right, it is about kind of celebrating here something that I don't, that I've struggled with or don't feel the best. So I have skinny ankles and I'm wearing a pair of joggers. So above the desert boots are these dark joggers that almost are the same color as the floor, the background of the subway floor. But they're my, skinny little ankles, very, very pronounced and prominent in the shot. And it's giving myself permission to celebrate the parts of me that maybe once I shied away from.
And the caption?
I can't read it from here.
The caption is, I man a walk pon confetti.
So yeah, I guess in that moment I was seeing the floor as that just sprinkled with confetti, and I'm.
This is the same cheap plastic you just called fake terrazzo.
The same thing, and it's about. For me, it was about what was going on with me in terms of my mood at that day. And I remember that was one of those days where you kind of leave the house and put one foot in front of the other. And taking the photo and thinking of it as confetti was an active exercise in seeing it differently and reframing the day.
So how does this practice help you read the subway, read people, learn, how is it, maybe we've talked in some ways about how it's expressing, but how is it shaping how you see?
I don't think it's changed how I read the city and how I view the city. I think it really does. I think that's something the way I do it in the photographs is the way I've always done it, even as a little kid, being in the city. There is, coming to New York for the first time, I was 8. And we, the first time I got on the subway with my father, and it was an old Redbird, and you could still, he took me onto the first car so we could go onto the front and look out the window as the train was going through. And so there is, for me, always this way of being in the subway and being in that space and the whole, everything that the subway brings. It's always connected to me, connected to that first experience of being in New York for the first time, being with my father, being with my parents, and appreciating in a kind of childlike wonder all of the things that are there. And it's not all pretty, and it wasn't all pretty then, and it isn't all pretty now, but the other things are there too. And so I think I've always done that, and this doesn't have to change it anymore, because that's something that I think is important. I hear a metaphor in how you describe it, in terms of how people fit into the geometry of the city, the geometry of the subway. And there's this way that, certainly for me, and I think for everybody, I think it's universal in terms of we're struggling to fit in, to find spaces, to find comfort, to find how we fit in the world. I mean, we're doing better as a society of talking about that and talking about certainly how different types of people fit in the world. But I think the reality is that even people who traditionally were seen as an easy fit, I think everybody still struggles with that. That's what most of art comes from, you know. So when you describe the picture in terms of looking at people in the geometry, I think that's a nice metaphor, and I like that.
I want to ask you about this picture. This is a picture of, I mean, again, you're using some of the tropes we talked about. You're using the blur, you're using the frames, and you're using the orange, or actually it's not that orange, it's more kind of like that. It's that beige or maybe even beige is too much of a color to describe it.
I think I'm going with you with the original orange, because so the surface we're looking at is not the orange, but the seat that she's sitting on and the seat that's vacant next to her is orange. So there's enough reflection onto that beige wall. So I see the orange that you're seeing there.
Yeah, so tell us about this picture.
So this photo I took on the Franklin shuttle. While many of the photos are about stories between people or among people, often between just two, there are times when there's one person who just looks like a story unto themselves. And this woman walked in, and I see her, I have no idea, I see her as a Caribbean woman. It's winter, and she's wearing all black, but her scarf is bold and bright, and it's black, green, and gold, which are the colors of the Jamaican flag. She might or might not be Jamaican. It's wrapped just in this kind of lush and soft way around her. And she is minding her own business, but even as she walked onto the train, as soon as she walked onto the train, I knew I wanted to take a photo of her. She sat in a place where I could get it, and she sat in a place that allowed it to be framed by the subway window. And I took a few, and this one, again, had a nice blur with people outside the window. And so it really came out. I like how this came out. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm reminded, this is a father and son picture. And I just, for the record, let the court know, right, that Anton just leaned back in some sort of reaction. But it's a very, tell us about, this is a father-son picture. And you were just talking about the subway as a place where your father introduced you. And so I just wanted to ask about this. Maybe I'm forcing things a little too much.
No, you're not forcing anything. I had a strong reaction to it because I'd forgotten about this photo. I went back and looked at some things this morning, to kind of be ready. And I'd forgotten about this photo. And this is one of my photos that I absolutely had to take. I took a joy in it. It was on a C train going from Fort Greene to my job. I remember the day clearly. And one of my general rules is I avoid taking pictures of kids. I won't take pictures of kids, by themselves or whatever. Again, you don't want to be a creepy old man or something. But I'll take a picture with a child and a parent occasionally, and this one I had no choice. And I hadn't thought of it in terms of the connection with me and my father until you said it, and thanks for saying that. But just the moment, and it wasn't just a moment. Again, I was sitting on the train with them, and there were moments before this one that I captured. It was a beautiful interaction between this young man, probably in his 30s, very New York, very Brooklyn, and casually dressed. And if you just saw him by himself, you'd say, he's, a young single man. And he's with this young boy who's maybe 9 or 10, and maybe his son. And he's showing him such attention and love and nurturing. I like it.
All right. Yeah. No, I mean, it's a very beautiful connection. You just see the connection is like they are the only two people in the frame, but in a way they're like the only two people in the world.
In the world, yeah. You're absolutely right.
That's so. Well, I wasn't trying to push emotional buttons, but
I am no. I really appreciate you making that connection, and while it makes me sad, it's that joyful sad. One of the things I've learned over the past few years is to 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 lean into sadness, and it can be joyful because it's sadness of a loss, but that loss is a loss of something that was beautiful and the memory of which remains. So I'm good.
I guess the last you mentioned you're working on a novel now. Like you said at the beginning that the photography is connected to the writing. So is this going to show up in the fiction or the poetry? Is it more of a kind of or abstract or a maybe kind of indirect relationship, or is it more a process relationship? What's the connection?
Yeah, the connection is definitely not that direct as that it'll show up in the work. It is process, and there's I don't know if you're probably familiar with the book The Artist's Way, or right?
Yeah, I've read it, and I practiced some of it. One of the interesting things about The Artist's Way is where people tail off. Like where they quit.
Yeah.
Because it's like for people who haven't read it, it's like a 12-week or 8-week. I can't remember how many weeks.
Something around.
I didn't make it all the way through.
Okay. So it's something like the subtitle is a spiritual path to unblocking your creative self, or something like that. And it's been around for dozens of years, right? Or certainly a couple of decades. So I made it all the way through after having resisted recommendations from one of my best friends for years.
Congratulations.
Thanks. But it takes you through some exercises, and some exercises one that is about having an artist date, a date with yourself. So even though I did the whole program years and years ago, there's certain things that I hold on to sort of like keep that creative part of me flowing, because there are all kinds of things in the world that kind of get in the way of that. So I might not write as much from time to time because there's work, because there's life, because there's a million other things. And some of the practices from The Artist's Way, one is an artist date. So one of my favorite artist dates is to go out and take photos. So in terms of process, in terms of me keeping sort of like the work going, a big part of that is nurturing my creative self, taking care of my creative child and that kind of thing. And so in that way, that's the most direct, the closest rather, connection between the photography and the writing. And then the other connections are just about, again, what we talked about, certainly how I see the world and moments that can kind of translate into things I'm writing. But definitely feeding my creative self. It does a huge, huge part in doing that.
And has it sharpened your observational skills in a different way than writing does, or not really?
They're definitely connected. I would have to think about whether it's sharpened it. Maybe it's freed it.
So where, if somebody wants to see your work, I mean, we've mentioned your handle, but like if somebody wants to see your work, to maybe connect with you, what, or maybe not connect, I don't know what you want. But if somebody wants to see your work or connect, what should they do?
So I assume that many people tuning in will be on Instagram. So Instagram that's how you found me. Thank you. So it's a great place to find me. I'm on Facebook as well, just as me, my name. I have two pages. One is an author page, and one is just my personal page. My publisher is People Tree Press. They're out of the UK, but they have a website. Just the traditional places, no place special. I've never like exhibited my photos or anything other than on Instagram.
Okay. Great. So thank you, Anton. It's been a really nice conversation.
It's been a pleasure. I'm really glad that I got to do this with you today.
Me too.
Yeah.
You've been listening to Metropolitan Faces, the podcast about subway photography. To see Anton Nimblett's photographs, check out the show notes on our website, metropolitanfaces.com. You can follow Metropolitan Faces wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also subscribe to our email newsletter, sign up at metropolitanfaces.com, and our Instagram is Metropolitan Faces, all one word. Metropolitan Faces is a production of Noun and Verb Rodeo. Our team includes Katie Pruden, Maddie Berger, and Jean-Luc Andre Montedi. Special thanks to Julie Subrin. Our identity was designed by Jesse Reed at Order. Our theme music is Express Train by Mr. F, which is on Burning Witches Records. This episode was made possible by support from the Lang Faculty Opportunity Fund at the New School. I'm Blake Eskin. Until next time, stand clear of the closing doors.